Welcome everybody. This is the special interest group for PnP Core and PowerShell. And this time we do have two different demos coming up today as well, one from Bert and one from Paolo. But let's get moving on the slides so that we have plenty of time for the live demos and also for the Q&A section. So first of all, quick intro. SharePoint Finance and Practices is owned by the SharePoint Engineering, but we work together with community, as in people like you, helping us to provide code samples, guidance, and real-world process and patterns how to make customizations in SharePoint Online. And that's really the key point of PnP. So it's not the people in Redmond sitting and coming up with the scenarios. We work together with community members like MVPs to make these things happen and the guidance happen as well. Now, that's and the AKMS SharePoint PnP is the one address to remember. But let's get actually ongoing on the slides. So, first of all, I have one slide on a really early February 2017 stats, so that's going to be relatively fast, just showing you guys where we are from a usage perspective. And really the key point why we are showing always this statistics is to essentially show you that if you're considering that, hey, maybe I'll start using the PnP Core component. Am I the first one? Am I the only one? The answer is no. There's quite a lot of other people using that as well. And the community is growing quite fast. So it's a great growth for the PnP. And you know that there's other people using the same components. So you can actually rely on getting answers for your questions and all of that. And then we do have one slide around the PnP PowerShell documentation in MSDN. So let's cover that one here as well. There's one small update on the modern site creation. So we're working on an updated guidance on that one. I'll come back on that one in a second. Then we have a few slides around the manage modern pages programmatically, including a demo from Bert Janssen. And this is really around the modern pages in the modern SharePoint sites or in the classic sites, and how you can programmatically create them, how you can modify the pages using a native CSOM or managed code or REST, and then also how do you modify or add even custom web parts on those pages. And then we do have a demo on the PnP Partner Pack or installer wizard around that one from Paolo. And Paolo is going to show in practice how to get that starter kit installed and more easily running if you download that from the GitHub as well. But Paolo is going to cover that in the demo. And we should have time for Q&A today, but let's see how the demos actually move along. So we'll probably spend majority of the time in Bert's slides and a demo. PnP Partner Pack. Yes, there is a small typo on the slide. That happens. Cool. So quick notes on the February 2017 usage. So the numbers are pretty impressive. February is going to be a slightly shorter month because we only have 28 days, but we're already at this point. We are above 1 billion HTTP requests going through the PnP Core component and PnP PowerShell. The Core component is now at 1,080 million requests, and the PowerShell is at 94 million requests as well. And from an overall tenant usage perspective, we have more than 3,400 tenants using the PnP assets within SharePoint Online. For on-premises, we don't obviously get this kind of statistics because we don't have access on understanding where it's actually being used and all of that. So that's kind of understandable. But based on the NuGet downloads and based on PowerShell downloads, we can kind of predict that the on-premises is 1/3 additional from a number perspective. If we kind of make that conclusion out of the numbers of how many on-premises NuGet packages or PowerShell commandlets are being installed. From a PnP provisioning engine perspective, we are now at 936 tenants in SharePoint Online for this month, and we do have one additional week still to go. So most likely we'll break that magical 1,000 tenants using the provisioning engine in SharePoint Online. Let's see if we get there. From a provisioning engine, let's say the general usage perspective, it's kind of an interesting statistics because we can see that the half of the people and half of the customers and partners are using the site's core, it's the native code using Visual Studio, and half of the people are using PnP PowerShell, which inside is using the core as well. So a lot of people are using the PowerShell for the provisioning automation within their deployments, which is kind of an interesting statistic as well. From a global usage perspective, these are always kind of an interesting if we can get some level of a competition between countries, and this is the top 10 countries from a HTTP request perspective. US absolutely number one. UK is super high this month due to reasons or another, and if you actually divide the overall HTTP requests in the UK divided by the count of tenants, you can actually see that it's much higher than in US. So the UK is actually catching up quite fast. Finland is amazingly high as well. Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, Norway, and Iceland is first time ever in the top 10 from an HTTP request perspective. Kind of interesting that Iceland is there, with only 18 tenants in SharePoint Online using PnP in SharePoint Online. And then from a count of tenant perspective, US absolutely number one, which we can see from the previous chart as well. UK 320, Netherlands is catching into the UK. We'll see if they can actually catch that. Germany, Sweden, Norway, Australia, Denmark, France, and Finland. So a lot of US, a lot of European, and then also Australia is actually pretty high from a usage perspective or a count of numbers perspective as well. Good. Just to let you know, this was more around, like mentioned, this is more around kind of showing you that, hey, you are not alone using this kind of a reusable tooling, the PowerShell or the core component. There's a lot of other people actually using the same tooling as well, which will hopefully help you to understand that you will get better support as well. Also, the numbers for SharePoint engineering and for the PnP initiative, they help us to essentially give us the right resources, because if usage is high, we get more resources to fix stuff and make sure that everything is running smoothly in production as well. A few notes around this one. So last week, the SharePoint PnP PowerShell commandlet reference went live to the MSDN, and well, there it is. I was just afraid that I missed the URL. If you go AKMS SPPnP PowerShell, you'll actually land to the documentation in MSDN. This is fully automatic documentation. So even though those documents are actually in the GitHub, they are being generated automatically. And that means that every single month, when we will do a monthly merge and monthly release for the PnP, we'll update this documentation as well. If you find a typo or you want to add an example on this document themselves, do not modify the GitHub files. Do actually go and submit a change on the PnP PowerShell code itself, because everything what you see in here, except the welcome page, is fully automatically generated. And I'm kind of related on this one just for the future reference as well. So we're looking into doing exactly the same for the PnP Sites Core, so the managed core component to see some extension. And then not related on PnP, but from a SharePoint engineering perspective, we are actually working on doing monthly updates also for the client-side object model, the native CSAM documentation, and also we're working on trying to figure out how do we do monthly releases for the full REST API surface what we have on SharePoint. That will still take some time, unfortunately, due to resource constraints and timing constraints, but sooner or later you will actually see the full REST API documentation available also in MSDN / the future location of MSDN, because MSDN is going to be actually killed at some point, but that's a different topic. Let's not actually even start that discussion. But anyway, so the PnP PowerShell reference documentation now in MSDN, and for a lot of the other stuff will be documentation will be improved for the native SharePoint documentation, also for the PnP documentation in MSDN as well. Good. One slider for the modern site creation, and this is just for updates. We are working on something which we're unable to get fully ready for this today, so we are unable to demonstrate this one today. But within 2 weeks, within the next special interest group call, which is on 8th of March, we will absolutely have this one ready. So we're working on updated guidance and updated API guidance for creating modern team sites or modern or let's say unified groups together with a modern SharePoint site, which is actually possible using SharePoint APIs. So you do not need to hit the Microsoft Graph endpoints. We are, however, in the journey of making this documentation and the right supportability statement for those APIs, and that's the reason why we're not explicitly showing how to do that right now. And just to be clear also on this one, so we will not support app owner creation for modern sites in the future either. The problem really is around the fact that the Azure AD and the Exchange actually requires that there is a user context when you're creating the required assets, even though SharePoint technically wouldn't actually require that. And the app only in a SharePoint context means that you would be running in a system account mode, and that means that you don't actually have a user context, and that's why Azure AD and the Exchange operations would actually fail for the unified group to be created. But essentially what it means is that you need to dedicate an account for your code, which is then running in the user, in quotes, in a user context, which means that you can still use Azure Functions, you can still use Azure Web Jobs or whatever is your chosen pattern for the site provisioning, but you just need to use a specific account for the operations. And we're looking into, obviously, from a PnP perspective, release simplified CSM extension methods for the new model, and these are targeted to be available in the PnP March 2017 release, which is going to happen on 10th of March, so the next monthly release. On 8th, we're pretty close already on the master merge, and we can actually show all of the new methods in practice. Simplifying story, what it means is that you do not need to sign in against Azure AD. You can actually do classic SharePoint client credentials or SharePoint online credentials access on SharePoint, and you can hit those endpoints and get a modern group to be created as well. There is a question from Rolf. Does this mean that we can support provisioning with the store apps? Well, theoretically, yes. In practice, no. Theoretically, yes, it would mean that if the store apps would support a full trust permissions, and right now the store apps do not support full trust permissions because you need to have a tenant level permission still. For the operations, and also there's the requirement of using a specific account for this operations, which could be challenging to create if you have a store app. But there's multiple maybe theoretical options to make that happen whenever and if we will enable full trust add-ins in the store as well. I'm not going to actually even start that discussion in this call. But let's actually move on. And I think Bert is going to take ball on from this slide forward. So Bert, please steal the control.
Yes, so let me take over as presenter.
Yep.
While that's running. So upcoming slides will give a bit more information around the work we've been doing around how to program modern pages. So all of this is kind of, let's call it a preview. Meaning it does work, but it's not yet released. So we share this information with you already early, so you can offer feedback or suggestions. So if you see something that you think like, maybe we can do things differently or better, please let us know. So first step is creating a modern page. And actually that turned out to be relatively simple, because what is a modern page? It's a list item in the site pages library list. So essentially, we have this add template file method, which is the first line on the code that I pasted in, which gives you a list item in the pages library. Then the trick is to set the right content type. So modern pages do have a different content type compared to wiki pages, which also implies that you can still mix and match different types of pages on one library if you would like to do so. But if you want to create a modern page, it's just content type to use. What else is important to know here is this client-side application ID. Essentially, this is a feature ID linking to the modern pages infrastructure that we have in SharePoint Online. So you need to set this particular feature ID. A page has a layout type. Currently, it's always article. Might change in the future, but today it's article. And then the most important field, I would say, is the canvas content one field. So where you see this div tag today in the sample. A bit like the wiki pages, where we had the wiki content, wiki HTML. I just can someone refresh my memory which exact field. But anyhow, we have a field for wiki pages as well, where we store all the HTML data, and the same concept applies for modern pages. So, but in this case, we store it in a canvas content one field. So, how does this canvas content one field needs to be filled? Because that's the key to the next step, being programming modern pages. Like I want to essentially being able to add web parts, client-side web parts on modern pages. How do we do that? So before we go to the actual PnP support for doing that, I want to give you like a little bit of information on how the page is structured. And this information, by the way, is also available on MSDN already, also in preview. But if you go to our guidance around customizing modern experiences, there is a page that explains how to customize modern pages, and this content is in that page already today. So an empty page, really simple, empty div, clean HTML, plain simple empty div. Whenever you want to add controls on that page, and a control can be a client-side web part or a text control, so a rich text editor control. They're slightly different, so that's why I talk about the different flavors, but you can add those type of controls on a page. Each control that you want to add on a page is surrounded by a div tag with a data-sp-canvas control attribute. So when you see this guy, it means like there's a control inside this div tag. This div tag has some JSON data, so the data-sp-control data is a JSON object describing the control inside the div tag. So in this case, in the sample, it's control type 4, which means a text control. The bottom sample is a slightly more complex one. Essentially, this is an out-of-the-box image web part being put on a page. So you again see this upper-level div with the data-sp-canvas control tag. This case, control data is slightly different because it has control type equal to 3, which points to a client-side web part. And then inside there is a div with data-sp-web part and additional properties and a lot of JSON data describing the actual web part. The title of the web part, the description is there, the parameters of the web part are there. Everything that kind of controls the web part is there. It's similar to the old web part data that you would need to give to SharePoint when you would put a classic web part on a classic page. But then in the modern variant and JSON in this case. Now, you could, of course, craft your own code that kind of spits it out and puts in. And if you get this right and you put it on a page, it works, and you have a modern page support. But yeah, that's a lot of work to do, and these things might evolve over time if we add new capabilities. So I think the advised way to work with this currently is to work with the PnP modern page object model, or whatever we want to call it. We need to think about a name first to really give this a clean name. But, so this is a really early preview. What do we have? And I will show a demo of this within a minute. First of all, there's two new extension methods on the web object. So if you have a web object type dot, you can say add client-side page. You give it a name, and it will create a particular new client-side page, an empty client-side page. There's a second extension method, load client-side page, where you can take an existing page, which can have like 10 controls on it, and you load it inside the PnP client-side page object model. So essentially, this load client-side page will give you a client-side page class instance, so the one at top right, and then you can start manipulating that that page in memory. So you can start adding controls, removing controls, shifting controls around, all of that, and then persist it back to SharePoint. That's kind of the idea around this behind this object model. Now I think a demo will make things more clear. So let's do that. And just again, repeating, this is a preview. Things might change. We definitely target to have it available in the March release. And if you want to experiment with it right now, you can, of course, always already grab this from the dev branch, because it is checked in into dev. Just confirming, can everyone see my screen?
I got it.
Yep. Right. Good. So, little simple demo application. This is a console application, and I've just hooked up the Office Dev PnP Core dev code base, essentially, because I don't have a NuGet package yet. But as of March, you can just do the same with the NuGet package. So what I will be doing in a demo is creating a SharePoint client context using the Authentication Manager class. Then I have 5 little demos. So I'm going to just kick off the demo already, and then step by step run over the demo and show you the results. So let me press F5, kick off this small application. It will ask my passwords. Right. So first demo, let's create an empty page. So first of all, just to show you guys that I'm not cheating, and I need to drag this one to the right screen. Here we are. This is my test site with a number of pages. There is no PnP Rocks page currently, so let's create a PnP Rocks.aspx page in the site. Then it will run, and hopefully we don't get an error, which is good. We should have this page. Going back to the library, refreshing the page. Does give us a PnP Rocks page. Going over here, you'll see this is a plain empty modern page. Nothing's on the page. Just simple empty page.
But you have a custom branding. Yay!
Yeah. It's actually a really old branding as well. You recall it, I think.
Conference back in 2014.
Yeah, SharePoint Conference 2014. Yeah. A long time ago, but you see, I still have sites laying around which I misuse for testing. All right, so we created this page, and this is also an example of our extension method. So you see cc.web, and then it's like the add client side page extension method. It does give you a page object back. So you could start from here and then do something more with the page and then save it back, but we come to that in a second. So in the second demo, I'm going to start from a template page. So the idea behind this, I have somewhere a page which I want to, in this case, I'm going to copy this page and extend it, or I could just change the page as well. So if you want to either copy or change a page, you would need to load it first. And this is what I'm doing here. So I'm creating a client-side page object by calling a static method load on the client-side page class, providing the client context and the name of the page that I want to load. So going over here, there is template page, which does contain an image. So it's a fairly simple page, one control on the page and image. So I'm going to load this page, pressing F10. And now I have an object model to manipulate the page. So I have a page object. The page object has controls. There is one control in here, and the control has properties. So this is an image one. So we see we scroll down. We see the type client-side web part. So there's a lot of data being fetched from the HTML and put in this object model, which allows you to then start manipulating it. So let's add a client-side text control, so a rich text editor control with the text PnP rocks. Let's create that control. So it's created. Let's add it with order -1. Essentially, I want to have this control on top. I want it to be the first one. All right. So at this point, it is added in memory in my page. So I have 2 controls right now. That is not yet on the actual SharePoint page because it didn't save it, so it's in memory. What else can we do? I already deployed a custom client-side web part that I created to that site with the name Hello World. So let's put that custom client-side web part on the page as well. To do so, you could instantiate your own client-side web part control and try to set everything up correctly. But the easiest way to do so is actually ask the page, what are the client-side components that are available? Actually ask the SharePoint site, give me all the client-side components that I can put on a page, which is this available client-side components method. So it gives me back a long list of client-side components that I could use. This contains all the out-of-the-box components like the image web part, the image gallery, the news feed, all of those things. In this case, I'm actually interested in finding my web part with name Hello World. So it is find it. So we have one instance of the web part found. And I'm now going to instantiate the client-side web part starting from my web part. You see that in the constructor, I pass the information I received from the page around the Hello World web part. I pass it inside the constructor to create a client-side web part control, which you then add on the page. And finally, just to close down, I'm going to save the page to a new name. So I load it from template page.hpx. I'm going to save it to as page with controls.hpx. Then, what happens behind the scenes is that the implementation will render the proper HTML and update the canvas content one field in the list item. So let's go back to this over here to the pages library. We have a new page called page with controls. Let's open up. You see that we have now PnP rocks on top. Scroll down. You see here that we have our famous, well, I don't have to zoom this guy, our famous Hello World web part showing all the libraries in the site. So let's work. All right, demo 3. What if you could also add an existing out-of-the-box web part to a page? And we can. So this time I'm going to start from an empty client-side page. So I'm just going to instantiate the client-side page, and in the constructor I pass the client context object. As soon as you need to interact with SharePoint, you need to have a client context object in the page model. Otherwise, it will throw an exception. So I'm passing the client context. Now I'm going to instantiate an out-of-the-box web part. So what I'm going to do is a bit similar to previously. I'm going to ask the page, what are all available web parts, and pick the right one. Now in this case, to make it easier for you to pick the right one, we have this this enum. Let's jump. Listing all the possible out-of-the-box web parts that you can pick from. So you picked the right one, in this case image, and it will pre-populate and pre-create actually a control with already the properties set for the image web part. Then you need to configure your image web part. So for the folks who already tried the image web part, when you add it to a page as an end user, it will ask you to select an image. if you programmatically do this, you have to provide that information programmatically. So in this case, what happens is that the image web part does have a properties of any client-side web part actually does have a properties attribute, which is of the type J object type, which allows you to just kind of on an easy way write and update the JSON string inside. So essentially, this construct over here, where I'm setting the actual properties, will internally update this type of JSON string that we have inside this object, because that's what we need to say back to SharePoint. SharePoint needs to have this data in JSON format, and the control will handle that for you, so no worries. But it offers you an easy way to set the right properties that you need to control.
And Bert, if I may quick jump on this particular topic. So obviously those properties which Bert are filling right now are web part dependent. So every single web part have their own client-side web part properties, and these are the ones, if you have done, for example, SharePoint Framework tutorials, you actually defined web parts for your custom web part as part of the tutorial. So this is slightly awkward. There's quite a lot of background noise, so let's actually mute. There we go. So it's slightly awkward that you need to figure out those individual properties per web part. But that really comes down on the fact that every single web part has their own properties, and they are decided by the developer of the web part, either in engineering as a first-party web part or a third-party web part, when it's coming outside of Microsoft Engineering. What we're looking into, actually, we already had an internal discussion into engineering around this requirement, because the remote provisioning is a obviously well-known and highly demanded capability. We're looking into having in the web part workbench a capability where you can get all of the properties as a JSON blob. So essentially you can configure the web part in the web part workbench, and then you're able to say, hey, give me the blob, and you'll get the needed properties, or you'll get the list of properties exposed in the workbench as well. And that's a future development for the workbench. Just jumping on the discussion.
No, that's correct. Well, if you look at the old classic web parts, you would also have to understand the properties if you would programmatically set it. But you could kind of indeed grab it from SharePoint side, so you have some context. But you can do the same here. So you can perfectly reverse engineer. Put the web part on the page, grab the content in the Canvas Content 1 field, and investigate how is the JSON configured. What do the properties mean? So you can today already do some kind of reverse engineering to figure out what it means and then set the right values. One other thing we have been thinking about, but we didn't do yet, or we might not do at all, but maybe we can ask for feedback, is like we now have a Canvas control class, then we have client-side web part control, which inherits from the Canvas control class. We could have an client-side image control, which inherits from the client-side web part control, which makes it easier for you as a developer to configure this. But then the downside is that we have to always kind of keep current, try maybe running after the facts, hopefully running before the facts, but it will be more work, and so we're kind of doubting whether that will be worth the effort or not. So initially we will release it with this model, where you have a client-side web part that you can configure. And as Wesley mentioned, you can get hopefully the future properties using the workbench. Alternatively is that when you instantiate the web part with this guy over here, the default property set is already available. So when you design a web part, in the manifest, there is the default properties set as well. So that information will already be available for you, which already does help a little bit. All right, going back over here. So properties are set. I'm going to add the control, again, similar to previous demos, add this image web part to the page, and then I'm going to save the page. So the page is saved as a name page with image. Let's go over here. Where's my Chrome? Pages. Page with image. And voila. Pretty simple page with one image showing, in this case, an Azure webhook function. Okay. Just to conclude 2 small demos, I can delete the page as well. So you load the page. You delete it. Now the page with controls is gone. So no page with controls anymore. And same way we can also delete the web part. So I could delete the first control of a page and save it again, and then in this case the image will be removed from my page with image. If I load this one again, it's empty. Should be empty. It is empty. All right. What else can you do? You can play around with the order of the controls. I think that's kind of sums up most of the capabilities in this current version we have.
Well, the question, Bert, would be what else capabilities would be needed? So we can create a page, we can delete the page, we can add stuff on the page, we can add web parts on the page, we can add first-party, third-party web parts on the page. I think we are pretty complete from that perspective, at least for now. So
I think as well.
Good. Great demo. And great to have these extensions in the PnP, which will no doubt simplify how to manipulate the stuff from within a SharePoint pages. And then obviously right now they are in a core component. We're looking into having PnP PowerShell commandlets for some of these operations as well. So you're able to actually create pages and everything else from a PowerShell as well. And then PnP provisioning engine support will, however, require schema level changes. So we're looking into those ones as well in the future. But step number 1 is always to have the capability implemented in the PnP Sites core, unless it's in the native system. Then from there we can start expanding to PnP PowerShell and the provisioning engine. But great demo.
Thank you.
Good. I think the following thing, maybe we'll jump right away on Paolo, and then we can do a Q&A after Paolo as well, because there would be just a slide where we're introducing Paolo's demo. So Paolo, feel free to take the screen sharing.
Okay, thank you, Vesa, and thank you, Bert. Let me start sharing my screen, and please let me know when you will see it.
Yes.
Loading, most likely.
Not yet, actually.
Yeah. No. So, okay, can you see it now?
Nope.
Yes.
Okay. I got it. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So this demo is about the new setup wizard that we are going to release in the PnP Partner Pack V2. And just to set the context, if you already installed the PnP Partner Pack, you know that we made available a long document with a full list of steps that you have to follow in order to set up the PnP Partner Pack. And in a manual setup guide, if you scroll down to the installation steps, you can see that you have a bunch of steps to accomplish to properly configure the PnP Partner Pack in any target Office 365 tenant. So we decided a few months ago to build a solution which will automate all of these steps for you, so that you can simply focus on some input arguments that you will have to provide to this tool, and you will be ready to have the entire PnP Partner Pack fully set up for you without any kind of issue or typo or error that could happen whenever you do the manual setup of the entire environment. So let me show you the, sorry about that, I have a bath. I have some kind of cough, so maybe sometime I will have to stop coughing, and sorry about that. But let me start with the setup tool application, and then I will show you how it works under the cover. So I will move to Visual Studio, in which I have the PnP Partner Pack solution. There I added a new setup project, this guy, Office PnP Partner Pack setup. And through this tool, you can do the automated setup. The idea is not to provide you a kind of double-click 100% setup as you would setting up a classic desktop application, because there are a bunch of things you have to do, or a bunch of settings you have to provide to the tool. So you can simply execute the tool from Visual Studio if you like, or from the file system, but you will have to do a full download of the master branch. Right now the setup tool is just in the dev branch, by the way. You will have to get a full download of the branch, or you can do a fork and then pull the source code on your environment, and then you will be ready to build the tool and run it. The tool knows where are the other projects that made up the entire PartnerPack solution, and will build them for you, will publish them on Azure, and so on and so forth. So that's why I'm starting right now from Visual Studio. And just to keep the demo faster, I already created the infrastructure set collection. That is one of the requirements of the PnP PartnerPack, because as you probably know, creating a fresh new set collection in SharePoint Online requires some time, takes quite a long time. So instead of wasting 10 minutes watching a progress bar becoming wider and wider, I preferred to create a fresh new set collection before the execution of this demo. And so here in my test tenant that I created, I already have a PnP PartnerPack infrastructure set collection, which is the well-known one for those of you who already installed the PartnerPack. But the tool will create it for you and will apply all the provisioning template onto the target site for you. I will just skip this step in my own demo. I already have also an Azure subscription ready, completely empty right now, because I will use this subscription to host all of the services and the content needed for the PnP PartnerPack. But right now, as you can see, it is completely empty. So let me start the application and let me show you how it works. Usually, on average, it takes about 20-25 minutes to do the full setup of the solution. I mean, the tool will need between 20 and 25 minutes to create all of the artifacts. So we will not, most likely we will not wait for this long time just watching the video. I will show you some information about the code under the cover, and if we will be lucky and the setup will complete before the end of this call, that's okay. Otherwise, just to let you know, in the upcoming days, I will record with Vesa a webcast in which we will see the full setup process. So first of all, in order to run this tool, you have to provide the Office 365 credentials that will be used to configure the needed artifacts in SharePoint Online, as well as in the Azure subscription that you will need to have under the cover of your Office 365 tenant, because, for example, there will be the need to register the Office 365 application inside the Azure Active Directory that sits under the cover of your Office 365 tenant. And in fact, here we say, okay, please provide the credentials of an Office 365 tenant global admin, and you will need to have a Microsoft Azure subscription active. If you don't have that one, we cannot automate that step. So you will have to create a subscription, and then you will be ready to play with the tool. By clicking on the login button, using ADAL, we can do the login against the target tenant. I will use this test user in this test environment. And as you can see, the tool will infer a bunch of information from the tenant. So if you like, you can just provide the login credentials, and then you will find a bunch of information already filled in by you, for you. Of course, if you want, you can change the values, but it's up to you. If you want to do an easy setup, you will have to provide just 3 information. The login I showed you, the password for the X509 certificate that will be generated by the tool for you, or if you want to use a certificate of your own, you can upload it selecting the upload option. I will provide a password here, and I will auto-generate the certificate. Then it will also provide the URL for the infrastructure set collection and all the settings needed to create that one, even if in this demo we already did it. And after that, you will also have to provide the third and last input, minimal input, I would say, which is the one for accessing the Azure subscription, the one in which you will publish through the tool the Azure website, the blob storage, the X509 certificate, and all the other stuff needed by the PnP Partner Pack. So let me log in one more time, and it's a different login. Could be exactly the same if you want to share the same Azure subscription for the services and for the Office 365 tenant, but usually I suggest to separate them. I will provide my password for my account here. And because I have a bunch of subscriptions, as many of us, I will have to select the target one. The list of subscriptions has been downloaded using the APIs of Azure, as well as the location in which I want to place the services that will be created. Again, I have a couple of auto-generated names for the app service name and for the blob storage name. If you want, you can change them. So by clicking the Setup button and just providing these three information, we will be ready. As you can see, I intentionally put a breakpoint here because I wanted to show you that I commented just for this demo the creation of the infrastructure set collection. But now I will move on, and as you will see, the application will do a bunch of stuff for you. It will create an X509 certificate. It will register the application in Azure AD, in the Azure AD of the Office 365 tenant. It will create the Azure Resource Group, the Azure App Service, and the Azure Blob Storage. It will configure the Office 365 application to use an X509 certificate in order to do app-only access against the tenant and SharePoint Online in particular. And so it will have also to upload and configure that certificate in the Azure App Service that will be created. Usually it takes a while to provision all the Azure artifacts, so I will move to the code side of the demo, and I just want to show you what are the main steps covered by the tool, which are all the steps needed, by the way. So as you can see, we create the infrastructure site collection, we create the X509 certificate, we create the Azure AD application, we create on Azure the resource group, the blob storage, and the app service. Once we have done all of these steps, we are able to update the config files of the projects, and I use the plural noun because we have the web project and we have 4 web jobs in Azure. And so just after having customized the settings in the config files, it will build and publish on the Azure App Service the PnP Partner Pack website, and then it will build and publish the 4 web jobs that we have, web jobs that we have in the PnP Partner Pack, using exactly the same app service as before. So let me go back for a while to the tool just to see where it is. Okay, it already created all of the services on Azure, and now it is building the project and uploading the project onto the Azure App Service, which takes quite a long time usually, especially today that I don't have a very good bandwidth, and sorry about that. But if I refresh this UI, you will see that I already have a resource group created for me, and I have an Azure App Service, as well as, if I go to all of my resources, I also have a blob storage that will be used to store messages in the queue, storage queue, that we use for the continuously running job. And if we will be lucky from a timing perspective, at the end of the setup process, I will be able to show you the web jobs configured inside the app service. On the other side, in the infrastructure set collection, of course, we already have the libraries that we need to store the templates, the provisioning templates, and the jobs. And if we go to the Azure AD tenant, which sits under the cover of our Office 365 tenant, I will be able to show you that within the Azure Active Directory of my tenant, which is this guy. Okay, here it is, almost. As soon as the app registrations link will be ready, I will be able to show you that we have the PnP Partner Pack application registered. Here it is, with all of the needed informations, like, for example, the client ID, the homepage URL, but we will also have the client ID, yes, the client ID and the shared secret for our application already created, and we will have all of the permissions set up in the environment for consuming Office 365 and SharePoint Online especially, Azure AD, and Microsoft Graph. So it is doing all of the stuff for us and for you. It is still publishing, building and publishing the application. As I told you, it takes a while because it has to do the full build of the application. It has to do the upload of all of the files onto the target environment. And it can be faster if you have a fast bandwidth, but it really depends on the bandwidth you have. So if I go back here, just to show you a few examples of how it works. Of course, when we create the infrastructure asset collection, we just use PnP Core, and you should already know how to do that. When we create the X509 certificate, we have some helper methods or utility methods that create for us the certificate using the APIs provided by COM in Windows. And moreover, for example, to focus on the registration of the Azure AD application, here we use the Microsoft Graph API, the beta version of the API, so that we are able to upload a JSON file like this one, which will have to be filled in by the application before uploading this file, and this will be the manifest of the application that we will create. And here you can see in the required resource access property, we have an array of all of the required permissions that we need in our application. Here I simply load that file, I set some of the properties of the file, and then I use the Graph API, I get an access token, and I use the Graph API to do the upload of the Azure AD application. Let me show you. Here I just make an HTTP request, I make a POST request targeting the applications endpoint of the Microsoft Graph API beta endpoint, and I provide the application manifest as an object which will be serialized as a JSON message and will be used by the graph to create the application. So really, really powerful. If I go back here, sorry, okay. If I go back, I can also show you that we create all of the Azure artifacts still using the same approach. So, for example, when we create the resource group, we simply configure the name of the stuff we need to create, and then we have some helper methods that, again, will just make HTTP requests, add or get or post or put, depending on what we want to do, using the Azure Management APIs, which are a set of REST APIs available that you can use to create, to automate the creation of artifacts and services on Azure. At the very end, we do the, we build the solution, and here we have, let me close this guy, oops, okay. We do build the application, and in order to build and publish the application, we use a PowerShell file, an external PowerShell file, which is this one for the website, in which we simply use the Microsoft MS Build tool, which we'll get from the registry just to be sure that we have the right part of the tool, and we will run MS Build, providing a bunch of parameters that will instruct the tool to do the release build of the project and to deploy on build based on a publishing settings file, that you can download from the Azure Management API. And that's what we do in this tool. So let me go back just for a few seconds. It is still publishing, so maybe we can open the mic for any question in the meantime.
Yes, there's a good question from Joel from the Ion window already on this one. So could we use this one for also updates, to push updates on the provisioning engine?
Not on the provisioning engine, but on the PnP Partner Pack. I mean, this tool right now creates a fresh new installation, but I'm already working on adding the ability to update an already existing application. And to be fair, already almost 50% of these steps are able to handle an update instead of an install. But I plan to be able to do a full upgrade of the PnP Partner Pack. So whenever we will release a new version, you can just download it and run again the tool, providing the same input parameters, and the tool will update your environment.
And that will actually update the provisioning engine as well, because the PnP Partner Pack is always...
Yes, but just the Partner Pack, I mean.
Yes, correct. The other point what I wanted to kind of call out is that the whole source code, what you're seeing here, is available already in GitHub in the PnP Partner Pack, and this is actually a great demonstration how to perform automation against Office 365 and Azure. So the value of this one and this tool and this wizard is not just the fact that you can easily set up a PnP Partner Pack. It's also the fact that, hey, quite often people need to automate these kind of things for their customer deployments. It actually shows how to make that happen.
Yeah, and you are fully free to reuse whatever you like in the source code, of course, as always, because it's PnP, so sharing is caring.
Indeed.
Still working on it, so if there are more questions, I think we can take them. Visa, we can come back to this screen. Maybe we will be lucky enough to see the fully running website, maybe not. As I told you, it takes between 20 and 25 minutes to do the full setup.
Yeah, I think we started that provisioning when we had 18 minutes time within hour. But we have 4 minutes. If there's any random other questions on, let's say, the modern provisioning and the pages for Bert or me or engineering or for Paolo or whatever, feel free to ask any questions while we wait things to complete in this side, if there is any questions. No questions whatsoever, because I don't want to actually flip on the slides. So is the web part tied on a site and a web? So the client-side web part, when you provision a client-side web part, it depends on a web part. So if it's a client-side web part which do not have any site-level assets like lists and content types and fields, which actually it can have, you do not need to install anything on the site. So it's a tenant-level deployment of the web part. And whenever you are then hitting the API for getting the list of client-side web parts, you will actually see that web part available. If the web part has in the web part deployment file or in the app file, if it actually has a dependency on a list, for example, list instance to exist on a site, then it is kind of considered as a list level instance from that side. We're working on an updated documentation on that one as well, and that lands in the dev.office.com/SharePoint within a few days, so that should be fine.
Yes, so in the latter case, you have to actually install the client-side web part first to the site. So you have to add an app, pick the web part.
Yes,
pick the client-side application, install it inside, and at that point, the API will see it and will return it as a possible web part.
Correct. Yes.
Just a quick update, the website has been created and now we are building and uploading the 4 web jobs. But if you like, Vesa, I can, in the meantime, take a few seconds to show you, here, that within the Azure website now, we have all of the settings. Should take just a few seconds. In the application settings. Come on. Okay, here we are, application settings. And here we have the needed settings to run. Oh, come on. It's not deleted, so please refresh. Okay, let me come back here. sometimes it happens when you have just created the app service using the Azure Management API, it could happen that you cannot find all of the information in the portal. It takes a while sometimes to update the information on the other side. And it looks like right now it is taking a while. But we will have the settings and the SSL certificate uploaded. So just let's wait and see what happens. Okay.
Good. We're getting close.
Any other question?
We're hitting the on the hour as well. So I think we're forced to close up. It's pretty close. Anyway, like Paolo mentioned, for the PnP Partner Pack Wizard, we will record a webcast, PnP webcast later this week, and that will go most likely live next Monday. So there will be a video where we will then edit all of the wait times and everything else, if there is any. So you can actually see when it's done and completed and all of that. But for now, I think it's time to close up our today's session. So I'm just gonna quickly go to the slide and just do a closing slide. Just for the sake of the video, nothing more than that. But thank you, Bert, for the great demo on the site pages site modifications. And just a reminder on that one, so the MSDN article related on that one has been already updated. So we do have an MSDN guidance on how to manipulate the modern pages. And on the PnP Partner Pack setup site, like mentioned, it's already available in a dev branch. It's going to be released in the March release of the PnP. So we will do some additional testing on that one. This is a preview of the capability, but it shouldn't be changing that much at this point anymore, because Paolo doesn't do any bugs. He never does that. He just writes everything at once.
Of course.
Works. Absolutely. Cool. But thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for watching, and we'll hoping to see you in a few weeks. In the next week we will have special interest group for SharePoint Framework, and the week after that we will have another special interest group for PnP Sites Core and PowerShell and provisioning. On that one we will absolutely demonstrate the new API support for the modern site creation without the requirement of going to the Microsoft Graph. But thank you everybody. Let's close up for today, and please keep on submitting issues and having comments and discussions in the Microsoft Tech communities and everything else. Let us know how things are moving. Thank you.